We are live. Hey, hey, hey. It's the
Hey
last
everyone.
one, and it's
Hi
also the
everyone.
special one. Thank you all for joining us. We have here SP, and she is, um, sorry, SP is an amazing person, and Emilios will do the introduction for us and also get a background about what she's doing and the great stuff she has currently.
Good, good, good morning, SP. Thank you for joining us. It's an honor
Good-
to have you with us.
Thank you so much. Hello everybody.
I'm
My
just
name.
sorry. I was just going to quickly introduce you to the
Oh
audience.
yes, please go ahead. Of
Yeah,
course.
no, all good. So Sadah Espii Proctor, she, hers, Espii, is an XR director and sound media designer for live performance and immersive experiences. She was recognized by American Theatre Magazine for multimedia storytelling in the Six Theatre Artists to Know series, and she also received the Barrymore Award for Outstanding Media Design. Her work encompasses global stories of women, social issues, and the African uh, diaspora, often with an Afrofuturist cyberpunk lens. SB directed the VR documentary Girl Icon, which was part of Oculus's VR for Good 2.0 and premiered at SXSW, Tribeca, Beijing, Women Deliver, Sheffield Doc Fest, Best Digital Narrative nomination, Transylvania, Guanajuato, and other international festivals. It was also exhibited at the National Civil and Human Rights Center in Atlanta, GA, and made the Forbes list for top XR experiences of 2019. It's incredible. She also was the sound designer for the interactive VR theater production Finding Pandora X, which premiered at Venice Festival and won the Golden Lion for Best VR Immersive Experience. Designing for live performance and music videos, her collaborations included Kimbra and Sophia Brous, Exotech, Sasha Velour, Deloon, Darian Ducan, Naisha, and Soul Science Lab. SB works nationally and internationally as a sound and video designer. She's mentored and taught masterclasses for Built by Girls, Garage Stories, Cannes Live Design, Institute of Documentary Film, MIT, and NYU. She's also been a member of the New Inc. and the inaugural cohort of ONX Studio. SB received her MFA in Performance and Interactive Media Arts from Brooklyn College and is a proud alumna of Virginia Tech. The session title is Arts and Technology in Live Performance and Immersive Storytelling. The session description is Embracing Spectacle and Story. SB Studios is an experiential design studio that develops narratives and immersive experiences for live, digital, and virtual storytelling. In this presentation, Sadah Espii Proctor will talk about previous projects her studio has taken on and the direction she plans to take in 2021. Over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Emilios, and thank you again, everyone. I'm really excited to be speaking with you all today. I am, as was mentioned, I'm going to get into some of the work that has happened in my studio practice, as well as what I'm looking forward to in 2021. So, as was mentioned about me, I work in sound and new media design, dramaturgy in terms of developing narratives, collaborating with other artists in developing narratives, and in terms of sound work, a lot of experimental composition. In terms of video work, a lot of projection mapping, and then getting into virtual and augmented forms of reality. Thinking about how sound and visual elements can come off of can either come off of screens or be less two-dimensional and really have a form in space. So this is my since there are not too many images of how sound design looks, this is one of the This is one of my favorite images of a play that I worked on called El Testigo. And it's basically illustrating that my interest in creating new work is things that are not only emotional, but also visceral, things that you can really feel within your whole body and not really just taking it at face value. And then in terms of projections and visuals and how that ties into virtual and augmented forms of reality, thinking about how to play with physical spaces and incorporate visuals into architectural forms. I used to perform. I used to sing, dance, mask work, as you can see. And my introduction into sound and visuals really came in my time at Virginia Tech through what's called the Linux Laptop Orchestra. So we had these small laptops, and we used particular programs that allowed us to use Nintendo Wiimotes to trigger a sound and then to be able to shape it in space. And essentially what that did for me was tie together the performance background that I had in terms of being able to create work and movement, as well as how sound and video can be responsive to not only the performer, but also the audience. So for me, sound, visuals, physical space and movement have been integrated from the very beginning, and it's something that I still carry into my practice today. So getting into VR and AR, I had started out with, working on stuff in Unity. My first real immersive project was Girl Icon, which was a VR documentary done as part of the VR for Good Creators Lab in partnership with Malala Fund and Milan Foundation. We went to India for 2 weeks to document the story of, at that time, 17-year-old Rani Kanauja as she was getting her education and the communities that supported her in that journey. It was important for us when we were both filming the documentary as well as editing that we talked a lot about perspective of audience and how that impacted how people received Ronnie's story. For us, it was very important that Ronnie had agency in her own story, that we, for this experience, that we did not have a first person narrative in this, that we were not Ronnie ourselves in this experience, but rather we were able to listen to her, to journey with her as she takes us through these different locations, and to have really have her speak her own experiences and have her own voice be heard, and for us to be able to receive that. It was also very important that Ronnie's story was fairly unique in a sense that she had felt support in getting an education through the Girl Icon Fellowship, which is how the film received its name, as well as family members and continuously encouraging her to get an education in her school, which she had a peer group as well. She also took time to mentor the kids in her neighborhood. And so all of these things we kept in mind as in shaping narratives. One of the tendencies about documentaries and VR documentaries, as we're moving into these forms, when you are looking at places in Africa or in Asia, is really finding ways to empower the subject of the story rather than having it fall into a sense of voyeurism, or in terms of virtual reality, a sense of being able to play around in someone's experience. So we really wanted to make sure that that for Rani, that she had her own agency. We had was mentioned before, this was presented at the Civil Rights Museum, where Dr. Martin Luther King also has his letters from Birmingham housed. And so for 3 months, people were able to visit this museum and hear not only Ronnie's story, but also other stories from the VR for Good series. Before Girl Icon came out, I went through an experience in Barcelona, hosted by Garage Stories. And it was a 2-week hackathon of being able to create a short 360 film. We decided to create a comedy, and we, again, in working with the actors and then also collaborating with the rest of the team, considered a lot of, again, what perspective looks like while being able to create these experiences, and how the use of perspective and how people move around in space would impact the story. I have a short clip to share. So something that is important to note for that experience was that the room that we were using had 2 main spaces. And so we added the camera in between that space, so that when people were looking left and people were looking right, that they were able to depending on where they were looking, they were able to construct the story a little bit differently. We considered what that experience is like for people building experiences in their mind. If they're thinking in a linear way of first this happened, then this happened, and finally this happened. And based on what they saw first, they would then put those pieces together to arrive at a conclusion. Finding Pandora X, as was mentioned, we did sound design for a VR immersive experience. And I had to do a site visit for this piece. So what you're looking at is the avatar that I chose, and that is actually me waving at our director, Kira Fencing. We had 3 different spaces, Cyclops Cave, the Mount Olympus, as well as the city, and being able to think about what those soundscapes were for each space. There's also a limited number of cues that we could have for the show. So we were only allowed to have 9 cues for an hour-long experience. So each of the sounds had to be deliberate, but also creating sound beds as well. Here's an example of how massive that world is. Finally, Black Imagination was a play series that was hosted by Crux. The first experience was a series of 3 plays, and so I directed a group of actors in that experience as well. And again, playing around with different spaces and how people are moving through. So what does that have to do with looking ahead? As was mentioned, I'm currently based in Brooklyn. And so coming out of the pandemic, we're thinking constantly about what people have access to, what spaces they're occupying, how they're moving through these spaces. and how their relationship to spaces have changed since the pandemic. So a few things like volumetric capture and photogrammetry for web experiences in particular, being able to reconstruct physical spaces and have them on a computer, but then also have volumetric capture to be able to still bring in that human element, especially since during the pandemic, there's been a lot of spaces that have been empty due to people not being able to gather. So having these virtual experiences on the computer, but still having a human element, a live human element present, is something that will encourage people to try these experiences more. Another thing that we'll be getting more into are installations, especially with spatial audio. The beauty about installations is you don't have to touch anything. So people can continue to remain distant, continue to be masked, or just come if they're not sick, and be able to take in an experience. This is veering away from interactive experiences where there is a feedback loop of being able to do something and something happens back, but rather giving people a sense of being able to take things in, especially as people are moving from isolated spaces back into public spaces in society. These are nice ways to ease people back into live performances. Mixed reality performances, as people continue to play around with what virtual reality is like, being able to use technologies that people are already familiar with, such as motion capture or CGI, and to be able to bring those together, either bringing them to physical spaces where they can see both of those elements, or having something remain entirely virtual and then using these real life elements to bring things together. And then finally, concerts in the metaverse. I don't say virtual reality concerts because depending on who you ask, a virtual reality concert is one with a headset and not necessarily through a browser. But concerts in the metaverse can include augmented reality concerts, virtual reality concerts. This can include some sort of hybrid hybrid physical and digital, where we are playing with scale. And on the virtual side, we are playing with scale and what's like the vastness and the size of experiences that people can have, and really turning up the spectacle elements, as was mentioned in a mission statement, embracing spectacle and story. By really dialing into and embracing the spectacle part of the experiences, the story of the music, or the story of the play, or the story of any of these kind of gatherings, that you can really have a reason to continue to engage metaverses, as people are craving to go back outside, as people are craving to gather together again. We want to make sure that if people are going to have virtual experiences and continue to develop these kind of things and be able to go to them, that there is a valid reason for really wanting to engage in these kind of things rather than going to concerts. If you're going to go to a physical concert, then you can do that. But if you are also able to attend a virtual concert or go to a Zoom play, really justifying the reason as to why I would want to stay inside and be able to have these kind of experiences. And so these are the things that that myself, as well as other collaborators, will be focusing on. It's really important to understand that the relationship to outside for many people have changed. Being in New York City and being accustomed to millions of people being around and the hustle and bustle, and then being able to go to Times Square and seeing it empty, is something that is very surreal and very strange as well. And so, there's a desire to go back outdoors. There's a desire to, go back to plays and Broadway experiences. And there's also a desire, because of the amount of engagement with technology that people have, to disconnect. But at the same time, I believe that we can continue to bridge the gap in information on what kind of XR experiences are possible. I think that people are really craving presence, human presence, and not like a flat human presence, but like a holistic human presence in their digital experiences. And so it's important that as we continue to develop digital experiences that are two-dimensional, or virtual experiences that allow people to feel more immersed with their body in an experience, that each of these things are intentional, and each of these things give people a reason why they would want to tune into these experiences. At the same time, for those that are going outside, finding, because people are still engaged in digital spaces, finding ways to augment audio or augment visual elements in a physical space, since they're already developing a new understanding and a new relationship with physical space. To be able to also add a digital layer to that is something that I think will get us closer to people understanding and realizing the full extent of what an XR experience can be. So thank you very much.
Wow, Espii, really impressive. You're working on some pretty amazing pieces. I'll lead us off here really quickly because I had a really interesting observation while I was listening to you talk. I've recently I found myself in larger circles in the XR space. Julie Smithson was on before. We were talking about XR women and how we're coming together and getting a better feel for the different spaces we're kind of inhabiting. And you really brought to life something that I think is amazing in your presentation, which is really this concept, I think, that we're missing, right? We have XR for the performing arts, right? And then we kind of have this other thing. It's like XR for simulation or XR for training. And I think what you're hitting on is really so important, Espii, because what it's all about is how do we bring all that talent together, right? And actually, I love how you say you don't want it to be voyeurism. How do you encourage people to inhabit a space and to become part of that space, right? And I think there's so much knowledge that you all have from the performing arts space that we all need in this space to understand how do we really make those environments that are inclusive, that welcome people in and encourage them to be themselves, and to grow and develop as part of that process. So you have me thinking about so many things that you talked about human presence and how we even direct the scene, and how does that translate into the XR experiences that we're making available for people. And are we making those experiences about things, or are we making them about people and the interaction with people? So that I don't have a question for you necessarily, other than to say that was a great takeaway that I got from what you shared with us, and I consider that to be a huge gift to not only myself but others. I think you've opened our minds a little bit with regards to what we need to think about when we're really creating spaces that can allow people to shine and give them opportunities to grow. So thank you for that, Espii.
Thank you very much.
Yes, Espii, thank you so much. Just wanted to ask, basically, if there's any opportunity for anyone in our audience, if they're interested in potentially helping you in the team at the Academy of International Extended Reality, for XR Entertainment, how do they reach out to you if there is opportunity to collaborate and help?
So for AIXR, it's a nonprofit organization that just connects with the community in terms of events and panels. They have an ongoing series of events that I can just share share their information and that people can be able to attend. There's also in terms of I think what's important is engaging with the international community, and that goes both ways. You know, for Africans on the continent and also within the diaspora to be able to engage with a larger community, but also for that larger community to really open up and remove walls and barriers to be able to let experiences in. I think that there's just so much talent and there's so many ideas that people have, and you know, whether it's a lo-fi experience with, you know, a 360 camera or a cell phone or a headset like the Oculus Go or the, you know, or the Samsung mobile headset, or if it's like a high-end rendered experience. I think it's important for everyone to see that all of these things are valid, and there may be hesitancy in terms of like what kind of experiences are being created. But it's still very important that we have all of these things represented. As for myself and my studio, I'm open to collaborations, especially as we're moving back outside, you know, folks that are interested in AR or folks that are interested in some of the lo-fi experiences, 360 video. These are things that I'm very interested in bringing forward.
Fantastic. And I was just going to say, so ask you one more question. What's your favorite music genre, out of curiosity?
I feel like Arome knows this by now. It's a combination. It's a combination between let's see, R&B, metal, K-pop. What else?
Lovely mixture.
Yes, so wide range.
Wide range.
Yeah, very, very wide.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So thank you so much, SP, for your session. I like how you actually talk about the connection between especially for storytelling, right, which is very important. I'm also looking at how to create content within that space. So we'll definitely have a chat and see how we can collaborate and push out content, especially content that reflects on what's happening in Africa and showing Africa in a more better and prosperous perspective. So thank you so much for your time. And then your session was should I say soft and also great.
Yeah.
And like it was so cool, right? And you did great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Very inspiring.
Thank you.
Great. So we'll connect soon and do have a very great evening, I guess. Right. And take care.
All right, you too.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. So this is, wow, we did it. Day one is.
Day one.
It's fantastic. What an amazing day.
Yeah.
Wow.
Do we have to stop?
I know. Right? We'll just keep going. I don't know if anyone will watch us. We'll just keep going.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, Emilios, Farida, Babatunde, everybody in the back end, even Abdul, my friend here.
A big shout out.
You guys are the real stars of the show.
Yeah, the guys, the team behind the scenes, you're amazing. Thank you.
Great. So we're starting off tomorrow's session with Daniel. So Daniel runs an XR startup in Ethiopia, and they're doing great stuff with XR for culture and tourism. So let's bring our cultural hats on tomorrow. Right?
Absolutely.
Let's do it.
I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it.
See you guys.
Have a good one. See you tomorrow.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.